Welcome back to UKSG Blue 2023. This event, we're raising money for Crisis, and you can donate with the links below the stream. We would like to shout out ESA and BSG for their continued support, but now it is time for our next run, which is Drakodan, who's running Astro by Omega Factor. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am so ready.
Okay, good luck. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is going to be Astro Boy, Omega Factor, nice little sleeper hit on the GBA. I don't really like calling that because everyone loves this game that's actually played it. So if you haven't seen the game before, very much looking forward to showing you what's on offer. Side-scrolling beat 'em up and just a nice little enjoyable adventure. So I'm going to get started in 3, 2, 1, go. So start by skipping a tutorial. Forgoes getting a upgrade point, and you really want upgrade points in this game to boost your stats, but it takes too long to get that one in particular. So this is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up. At its core, this game is a series of enemy waves where you need to clear the current enemy wave to progress, and the game defines the current wave as being finished as when the corpses finish bouncing off the screen. As you can see, there's like semi-random trajectories. So there is a little bit of RNG in how this operates, and there's a little bit that you as the player can do to force early screen unlocks. If you jump, you scroll the camera upwards, and that can end up unlocking the screen a couple of frames sooner in each instance. But then you also can compromise your movement a little bit trying to do that, so it can be a little bit tricky. So the main form of movement in the game is using the boost here to move. It's a very useful little movement tool. I'm also going to lose a couple of seconds here as I get hit by that. Yep, lovely. It's 50% chance whether that car goes high or low. So we're going to get our first upgrade point here. So the way this works in this game is Astro is a self-learning robot, like not necessarily an AI, but Astro's abilities grows as he meets people and learns about the emotions of different characters, and that fills what is called the Omega Factor, the database of characters. And every time you learn about a character, you gain an upgrade point to put into your stats. And typical like variety of stats like health, attack power, boost, which gives you an extra usage of the boost when you're airborne. But for the purpose of the run, you want to boost nothing but the laser stat to begin with, as it is the highest DPS when used on bosses, and there are certain sections of the game where you can only use the laser. You don't have access to your hand-to-hand abilities, so it's just by far the most efficient stat to boost. The second stat that's going to be boosted in the second half of the run is the machine gun stat, which isn't really used until the end of the game, but is exceptionally useful when it is used. So the boost being the main form of movement tech here, you can see that it is used to move faster. It's also used to move through objects. It's a very nice property where as soon as you initiate a boost, you become completely intangible. Like nothing can interact with you until you exit out of the boost. So you can use this to move through solid objects, to avoid lots of forms of damage, and to just set yourself in generally favorable positions to deal with certain enemy waves. And although you have a limited number of boosts, like because I don't have any points in the boost stat, I can only use the boost once until I land. But for general movement, you completely bypass this by just using the boost on the ground, as your boosts get refreshed when you land on the ground. So if you never leave the ground, you effectively have infinite boosts that you can chain back to back. The previous route when I first came to this game started by putting a point into jets to offer some more flexibility in the air, but frankly, it's just not needed, and the extra firepower from having laser just really benefits you throughout the entire run. So this is the first boss, Magnemite, not the Pokemon, and this is a very simple strat where you just do a punch and an arm cannon for each phase, and this is the strat that the task uses. Like, I created the task for this category, and I tested a whole variety of strats for this fight because I was like, this can't be the fastest possible method, but it turns out, yes, it is. There is actually no faster way to deal with that fight. So coming into stage 2, we come into a little auto-scroller. There are a couple of auto-scrollers peppered throughout this game, and they follow the same basic rule as the side-scrolling segments, where you've got to deal with enemy waves as they come on, and you can't progress until the current enemy wave is finished. There is very little RNG in these segments, like the enemy waves are more or less entirely scripted. So progressing through these sections is just a case of being in the right place for enemy spawns as they come up. I'm going to wait for the second spawn here to do an arm cannon. The arm cannon itself is one of Astro's 3 super attacks. You can see the gauge in the top center showing how many supers I have to use. Playing on easy difficulty, the main reason for that is to give you unfettered access to super attacks. I mean, the harder difficulties are very hard, but part of the reason for that is because you have almost no access to super at any time. On the hard difficulty, you can only store up to 3 supers, and you don't gain fuel towards a super from using your current super, and that pretty much compounds to just making it a lot more difficult because your overall firepower and survivability is a lot lower and bosses just take a lot longer. Like, it's not a significantly more entertaining run when on hard difficulty. You spend so much time just trying to dodge stuff. So we got the artificial sun here. Going to start with positioning here and using the arm cannon to try and manipulate it after the second usage into near the center of the screen, where it will move to start the second phase. And now there's going to be tons of lag as we spam arm cannons to burst this down as quickly as possible. It's going to get larger as health decreases, but it's going to die just before it becomes a problem. And we're going to finish it off here, not with an arm cannon, but with a finger laser. You can see that every time you start a super attack in this game, there's a roughly 2-second startup animation. So using it to either finish off bosses or to take care of little enemy waves, it's very often not preferable to use a super attack because the time save does not outweigh the cost of starting it up. 3 punches and an arm cannon to deal with this. Don't even... It's best to not ask questions about what's going on in this game. Like, it's best to just sit back and enjoy it because the story makes no sense and it's incredibly convoluted and involves time travel and everything else. Like, just don't ask questions in Omega Factor is the best way to deal with it. So we have a darkened room here. This is dark because I don't have any points into the hyper sensor, which improves Astro's perception abilities. But it's the same every time. I know where to go, so I don't need any points in sensor to deal with this room. We're going to just keep boosting laser for primary firepower. Do a quick boost cancel there, quickly get up here, and of course I get hit by the pseudo-random enemy movements, but that's fine. It's not too punishing. Taking damage in this game generally isn't super punishing on easy. 1 punch into an arm cannon to deal with this guy. Then we're going to use the jet's intangibility to avoid a bunch of enemies falling directly on top. Turn around with an arm cannon and a finger laser to finish these off. And coming into one of my least favorite screens in the whole game, this elevator, when I was working on the task, I stopped working on it for a few months simply because I didn't want to deal with this screen. It's awful to optimize this screen where you have to destroy a certain number of bees and a certain number of bats. Well, you have to destroy a certain number of bees before you really focus on the bats at all, because the bats will keep spawning until enough bees have been killed. This guy's stuck in the bottom, so I'm going to use a machine gun to force him upwards. The machine gun is a very weak screen-wide attack, which is more used for crowd control than anything else. Its damage output is extremely low, but for screen-wide damage control, it's very useful. And it also gets a lot of objects off-screen at the same time. Timing and input here, that is perhaps the last frame I could have done that input before just getting landed on by that enemy and taking some recoil, so not too bad. So we've got the stage 2 boss here, Pook. This guy is going to always start by going between 4 different animal forms. And I want to see the lion form last, preferably 1 in 2 chance here. Okay, so every time this form spawns in, it has the green energy shield there, which is out for a random length of time and makes him completely invulnerable. You can mitigate that slightly by going behind, which forces him to turn around, but now that he's been through all 4 forms, he's going to randomly switch between, and I want to see the lion as little as possible, so that's a really bad start, since there's 1 more transformation, it could be lion again. Okay, that's fine. So as you can see, the arm cannon really just shreds through bosses super quickly, and it's not fully upgraded yet. It's like half upgraded. I'm going to put this point into shot though, not into laser. Shot is going to be used at the start of stage 3 for some, like I say, screen-wide crowd control, and with 1 point invested, it will cause some one-hit KOs on entire enemy waves. And since it is going to be the secondary stat boosted in the second half of the run, it's just nice to get a head start here and also have it be able to clear out enemy waves like that without needing to worry about trying to hit entire waves at the same time. So we've got a little upward silo section here, bunch of enemies, really strong enemies, spawning at pseudo-random points. But by staying at the bottom here and allowing them to all spawn in roughly the same spot, it makes it a lot easier to deal with them all spawning in the same place and just clustering them all up for some quick destruction. That was a method that was discovered by fellow runner Sonikustar. That was a super optimal exit out of the silo as well. So yeah, big shoutouts to Sonikustar for coming up with that method of manipulating the spawn points. A little bit of tech here is if an enemy is going to take more than a full punch combo to kill, like in that case those enemies take 6 hits to kill, it's slightly more optimal to do 3 punches and then cancel your current combo and start a new one, as opposed to finishing a combo with a kick. The kick is just slightly slower, and the same number of hits can be achieved slightly faster by cancelling and starting a new combo. The kick itself, the primary use, is for, again, crowd control. Because when you kick an enemy, if it's not completely stationary, it will go flying across the screen, and it can then collide with other enemies and deal damage. So you can get like a domino effect going, and it can be pretty useful in those situations, but for singular enemies, the kick is almost never better to use. So exiting the screen, coming into a mini-boss, but the laser is pretty nicely upgraded at this point, so with a couple of punch and laser combos, this guy goes down very easily. I'm going to come into the second screen that you cannot see properly because I don't have points in the hyper sensor, but again, I know where to go. It's really not needed. And I'm going to stop for one optional upgrade point here. It's hidden in the background layer. This upgrade point is actually really useful. It has a compounding time save effect, since the next enemy wave that I'm going to come into, the game is supposed to lag extremely hard at this point. Like, the game should be running at half speed, but for whatever reason, picking up that upgrade point that I just got just causes the lag to not occur. And I wasn't aware of that until I started rooting 100% in this game. I didn't previously get that upgrade point until I needed to for 100%, and then just noticed, like, there's like no lag going on here, and it took me a little bit to connect the dots and realize it only happened when getting that specific upgrade point, which is really strange, but I mean, it works. So enemy spawns here, not super friendly, but okay. Can I still make this cycle? Just, okay. Nice intangibility from the jets coming in clutch there again. You cannot be interacted with until you exit the boost state. Oh, I shouldn't have turned the camera there because, yep, enemy's slightly off screen there. That's fine though, just a very minor mistake. So we're going to have a couple of waves here, which is 4 punches. This next set is going to be 3-3. Oh, except I didn't get all of... Yeah, okay. I missed one enemy there. That's fine. And then an arm cannon to deal with the last 2 waves. And then we'll be going into stage 3 boss, Atlas, who is kind of like your counterpart rival character-ish, except kind of not really. But we're going to start with 2 arm cannons. And I'm going to have some selective intangibility here from being in the arm cannon state, which lets me just ignore Atlas's attack. To start phase 2, I'm going to physically push him to the left, with the idea that after 2 arm cannons, he's going to charge towards me, and now he's going to move back into the starting position. And at the end of the fight, the cutscene doesn't play until you and Atlas are in starting position, so it's just a nice little way to optimize the cutscene time there by getting him in the right position and not having to wait for the screen to progress. So now we're in the South Pole, like Antarctica. Again, like the story in this game is kind of difficult to follow, where the first robot president of a nation has been elected, and now there's a human terrorist cell which really doesn't like that because they're afraid of the encroachment of robots and AI. Like, it's, yeah, it's weird. But surprisingly, I like how some people think IRL. Come on, finish off with... Okay, there we go. Just had to finish off that last enemy with finger laser as he got pushed off screen. In one of the previous waves as well, I showcased a nice little piece of tech where when you have a group of enemies across the entire screen, you can use the boost to boost beyond where the last enemy is. And then once you become solid again, Astro and another object cannot occupy the same space, so something has to move. And if you're against the screen border, it's very often the enemy that has to move. It snaps them into the middle of the screen. And then you can just turn around and use an arm cannon for an entire screen length attack to finish off an entire wave at once. It's a very nice little piece of tech. And this screen itself was a bunch of random platforms, which TLDR, you want as many platforms to appear on the right as possible because they simply exit the screen sooner. The ones on the left, you want them to be as low as possible, but you don't have control over that. So ones that are on the left and higher up, they're really bad because they take longer to exit the screen, whereas ones that appear on the right, they always exit at the same time, and it's pretty quick when they're on the right. So another nice little auto-scroller here, but there's not too much to talk about in these auto-scroller segments once you've seen one of them. So if there are any messages, now is a great time to come in with something.
Perfect, then I'll do that. We do actually have a donation. Paulister donated $100 and says, as promised, here's to good runs, lots of money raised for charity, and staying hydrated. You heard him, chat. Stay hydrated. Yeah, go stretch, but don't leave the screen. Do we have time for another donation?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
Then I do have a very important donation from Poppeter from $25 saying Lirvop. Hopefully that should reset the curse. Let's hope for the best.
I mean, this run is certainly on pace to reset the curse. It's pretty decent so far, I'm going to say. So we're going to be coming up to the end of the auto-scroller pretty soon. I'm going to just sit here and take an intentional hit, which will hopefully, still allow me to get behind that enemy to start damaging a few frames sooner. Very, minor optimization, but in auto-scrollers, you should go for whatever optimization you can. I'm going to come into the stage 4 boss here. Carib's a big nuclear tank that's trying to destroy the Antarctica conference. Start with 2 arm cannons, and I'm going to sit inside the hitbox and take damage. Use the finger laser for another bar of health, and did mistime an input there to start the arm cannon before I took damage, where starting the arm cannon at the correct time basically allows you to skip that instance of taking damage there. It's just another very small optimization, which is really the name of this game in general. It's a pretty mechanically simple game in and of itself, and it's simply a case of trying to optimize in 1,000 little different ways. This is very much a death by 1,000 paper cuts type of run, where there aren't really any huge glitches or skips or tricks. There's just a million different ways to lose or gain a fraction of a second. That's the type of run that this game is, where it's just fundamentals and just focusing on movement and trying to be as optimal as possible. Trying to move and act optimally is easier than you would think, since the input buffering in this game is actually pretty generous. There's a lot of instances where you can perform an input surprisingly early, during your previous action, and as long as it's buffered correctly, it will still come out. Which is useful in a lot of different places, such as chaining boosts like this, or while you're doing a punch combo into cancelling and starting a new combo, stuff like that. So doing the same tech where you boost beyond an enemy and force it to snap into the screen, then you can turn around and do an entire screen-wide attack. I'm going to come now into the final auto-scroller of the game. Mercifully, somewhat. This is definitely the most technical auto-scroller of the 3, though. There's a fair bit that's going on at any one time, and there are some sections which it's kind of difficult to optimize being able to deal damage as soon as possible. This wave is a little awkward with the spike ball, except I didn't have that enemy, so delayed a little bit in starting this next wave. And now you got these platforms, they kind of bob up and down slightly pseudo-randomly. So it can be a little difficult to consistently deal damage to them, as consistently as possible. This wave here, however, this is one of the few waves in the game where destroying this wave has no bearing on game progress, so I mostly just ignore that wave, since the only thing that can really happen if you're dealing damage there is if there's too much going on screen, too many objects and whatnot, the game will lag, so it's possible to go slower by actually trying to destroy things from just causing a little bit too much lag in the game. So hopefully this take damage. Whatever. That was a little sloppy, but again, again. When I say that something goes badly in this game, I don't mean in the sense of, oh no, I'm going to lose tons of time now. I often mean I'm losing a fraction of a second from making a minor positional mistake here. That's just the type of run that this is. And then you try and not have that happen 1,000 times in a row across the entire run. So we're going to have a little mini-boss here where, again, going to start with an arm cannon and destroy the top 2 parts, and then a second arm cannon for the bottom part. It's random whether that attack occurs, and as you can see, it does cause a lot of lag from the bottom because there's so many objects on screen. And now this cannon can use a few different attacks, which allow you to get different amounts of uptime with the arm cannon. At this point, it's faster for me to just finish with the finger laser. Slightly unfavorable RNG there, but you can't always, like, you know, directly control that. It's whatever. You're gonna use a couple of kicks here to cluster these enemies together and use a punch combo to deal with them. Nicely done. The wind is continually pushing you back on the top of that train there, which is a little awkward to get used to. Oh no, okay. There was still one enemy on screen there, so I got punched and sent tumbling. I thought enough time had passed for all 6 of those enemies to come on screen, but it's whatever. I'm just going to punch all these guys since they're currently clustered together. Don't necessarily need to deal with the start animation from the arm cannon. There's a consistent setup you can use on these waves here, though, where waiting to get hit by the blaster and then boosting to the side means that all 6 will have spawned, and then you can just snap them in screen. Is pretty favorable. Life is very low here, but you do get a full refill at this point. And then you shouldn't get hit dealing with this boss anyway. This barely qualifies as a boss fight. I mean, the idea is that there's 2 things trying to attack you at once, but both die before really hitting you. Oh, he's going to swing down towards me. I'm going to get hit. Except not really, because he dies, and then Dead Cross himself is also one more arm cannon, and he's done for. So yeah, having a fully upgraded arm cannon, like, you know, the game very clearly expects you to experiment with having a pretty balanced loadout, and also not necessarily knowing where a lot of optional upgrade points are. But when you just zero in on upgrading the laser and doing the highest damage possible, it's disgusting how quick you burn through enemy health and boss health in this game. Like, it's stuff dies really, really fast compared to casual play. And now we are 30,000 years in the past. All I can say is, again, I'm going to reiterate, don't try and follow the storyline of what's going on in this game. It's not necessarily a good idea. Gonna snap the enemies in screen here, turn around, and I'm high up enough that this should kill those as well. Yep, nice. Jumping to scroll the screen up and progress there a couple of frames sooner. Gonna, once again, turn around after snapping them in screen. Hit both. Little awkward wave here. Yeah, these enemies can randomly shield and just completely nullify damage. And then getting them to unshield is not entirely consistent. Oh, please. Oh, please. Double please. So, yeah. Again, like, oh, critical misplay. I'm losing time, and it's like a couple of seconds. It's whatever. But, you know, you'd rather not have that happen. These 2 huge things look pretty intimidating, but again, one arm cannon and a finger laser and they're done. Nice little fundamental movement screen here, where by boosting at certain points you can avoid these wheels, which do cause a lot of knockback if they hit you. And so boosting up the slope there is the closest you'll see to a glitch in this game, where, like, you just move faster by boosting horizontal to a slope rather than boosting parallel to the slope. I assume just because the game can't apply your movement in one direction, it like makes you move faster up the slope. I don't really know how it works. I should know if I've, like, you know, published the task for this, but I don't really know how the movement actually works in this game. Also, that was a boss fight. There was a little bit of manipulation actually going on in that boss fight, where there's a couple of color-coded attacks where the green attack can randomly come out when he's at lowish health, and it's a very time-wasting attack. You can't damage him during it, but you can only use one color-coded attack at once, and by being underneath him when the fight starts, it forces the red attack, which it is kind of laggy, but it's preferable to getting the green attack. And now we're back in the present, and the timeline has changed, and we're now in a post-apocalyptic future where war has broken out between humans and robots. And there's not many people left alive, and we're now dealing with the gauntlet of the world's strongest robots. That was the first robot north. Now we're coming into the invisible robot Denko. This can be a very long fight, but I also just hit a 3-frame window there that assumes perfect movement, so okay. By using the shot to start locking Denko down, you skip the entire phase of this fight where he goes invisible and you have to disable some reactors to make him turn visible again. I'm getting a window, thanks, laptop. And we're upgrading the shot, and we're starting to see what the shot is really used for now. We haven't seen it throughout like most of the run, but it was used in Denko to keep him locked down. The more the shot is upgraded, nice RNG from Brontus here, the more the shot is upgraded, the longer enemies get stunned for when hit by it. So Brontus is a fight where this weak point is only going to be out for short periods of time, but by using the shot, I can give myself tons more time and just keep him basically infinitely locked down. I have time to more or less use 2 arm cannons per usage of the shot, and it just massively extends the timing window you have here to unload on him without needing to wait for the weak point to come out in between his different attacks. One punch there to make sure this arm cannon finishes off, otherwise you don't have the damage to finish with that single arm cannon. I'm also ending each of these bosses in the center of the screen, so that Astro doesn't need to move into position into the teleporter each time. So now with the aquatic robot Epsilon, I'm actually going to start with a machine gun because I need to see which attack he's leading off with, which is signified by the arm that gets raised. So the right arm being raised means I can commit to a full burn strat here without needing to keep him locked down, necessarily. I just use one more shot to make sure I have the time to finish off here. And if the other arm was being raised, you need to use the shot a little more to keep a full lockdown going, since his own energy laser attack is starting up and he's completely invulnerable during that, and it kills you extremely quickly once it starts up. So now we have the final boss of the run, Pluto, the world's strongest robot. And the strategy is more or less unchanged. Use the shot to keep him infinitely locked down, and just don't really let the enemy act. Gonna get to use 2 arm cannons. Well, I'm gonna try and commit to using more arm cannon usage and only use the shot if this attack comes out, the plasma attack. So I'm gonna have time to use 1 arm cannon, then I'm gonna need to boost right in front of him to dodge when this plasma attack starts up. Still got hit, but it's whatever. It won't go right in front of him. Now I'm going to boost back out to range so he doesn't try and keep me locked in. And time is when the health reaches 0, so time is at the end of this super attack. Time. And then you get 1 more upgrade point, and then there's cutscene, and then some contingency happens for robot apocalypse, and then the world literally gets destroyed, and then you're dead, and now you get resurrected, and you have to go back and change the timeline. And again, don't pay attention to what's actually happening in the story in this game. It's not worth it. But it's a very pretty run. It's a very fun run to do, and I hope everyone enjoyed. Thanks very much to UKSG for the opportunity to showcase Omega Factor. If you're interested in running this game, please consider joining the Omega Factor Discord. It should be easily findable through the speedrun.com page for this game. Always love helping people get to grips with this game. And yeah, hope to see everyone there and hope for the rest of the marathon to go super well. So what do we got up next?
Well, thank you so much, Drakodan, for this lovely run. Smooth, I would say. So I think the donation to revert
26.
the bottle curse has worked. So yeah, next up, we're first going into an intermission, and then we are all going to be up for the Donkey Kong 64 randomizer run by CD-ROMatron. But before this, it's my time to say goodbye. This is the end of my shift. You'll be in the best of hands, which are attached to Howling Mad Mike. So we go into the intermission, have fun, chat, get up, stretch, stay hydrated, and everything to look after yourselves. And I'll be seeing you shortly. Bye!